Good morning, folks. Today I wanted to talk to you about the 6 laws of plant growth. I watch a lot of different YouTube channels and watch all of the gardening videos. Well, obviously I don't watch all of them. I watch a lot of them. A lot of the prepper channels, a lot of the different homesteader channels. And I see folks that are not observing the 6 laws of plant growth. I want to introduce those to you today and explain why you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't observe them. If you do understand the 6 laws of plant growth and you follow them, your garden is going to improve dramatically. Now, before we get into this, I want to tell you that these are not my rules. I did not come up with these. These are part of the Mittleider gardening system, which we utilize here in the greenhouse and also out in our soil, and was created by a man named Jacob Mittleider. As soon as I learned of these 6 rules and we started to obey them in our garden, we saw significant improvements in the garden and the amount of food that we produced. I believe in them. I believe in the Mittleider system, and it is my hope that in these videos I introduce you to the Mittleider system and get you interested in giving it a try. Alright, let me take you down to the chickens for a little entertainment while I talk, and let's get started. If you'll allow me the opportunity, I want to go through all 6 of these things and try and tie them together. Again, this is part of the Mittleider system, and we implement these in our Mittleider garden. If you don't grow a Mittleider garden, these 6 laws of plant growth will still benefit you, and you will see dividends in your garden if you're observing all 6 laws. The first law of plant growth is light. Wherever you've got your garden set up, wherever your plants are at in your garden, they need to be receiving a total of 6 to 8 hours of light daily. Ideally, your plants in your garden are going to get direct sunlight all day long. The 6 to 8 hours that I mentioned before is the minimum. The more light you can get, the better they're going to do. When we're avoiding shade, we want to avoid all shade. And this is where I think a lot of people fail in their gardens. I won't call it a failure, where they're not observing this law of plant growth. Their plants are creating shade on other plants. That's my finger. The shade that we want to make sure is not in our garden is not limited just to trees, shrubs, and structures. It also includes the plants that you have in your garden. If one plant is shading out another, the plant that is shaded out is not going to do as well. If you ensure that all of the plants in your garden are receiving the maximum amount of light during the course of the day, you're going to see more growth and your garden is going to do better. Second law of plant growth is temperature. We have an ideal temperature range for seedling production as well as plant growth. For the most success in your seed germination, we want a temperature of 70 to 85 degrees. In the spring, when it is time for us to start seedlings, we control our soil temperature by doing all of our germination under a grow light on a seedling heat mat. And we see a higher germination rate. If you're putting your seeds directly in the ground and the soil temperature is not within that range, they may still germinate. You're not going to get as high of a germination rate, and the actual germination process is going to take longer. Control the temperature for your germination and you're going to have more success. The second law also ties into the first law being light. In the summer months, if there is too much light, with that light comes heat. If you get too much heat, your plants aren't going to do well. It may become necessary in the summer with an extreme amount of sunlight, which increases our temperature, to shade our crop. If you're having difficulties with the heat during the summer months, you may want to consider shade cloth. Likewise, in the cold, you may have to provide supplemental heat for your seed germination, your seedlings, or the plants that you've got in your garden. In the early spring, when the outside temperatures are still cold, and of course we have the greenhouse now, but when we were growing in our soil, we made arches, used greenhouse plastic, and was able to better control temperatures. The third law of plant growth is air. A plant primarily takes in all of the air that it requires through its roots. When you see somebody putting seedling in the ground and they compact the soil around that plant, they're actually doing it a disservice. They're making it more difficult for that plant to get air to its roots. If you think about it, if you've ever had a garden or you've seen a farmer that has had low-lying cropland where it has flooded, water has stood over his crops, they all ended up dying. It's because they can't get oxygen to their roots when they're submerged underwater. We need to provide a growing medium, such as good soil or a custom mix, kind of like what we do in our greenhouse in the sand and sawdust. We want a growing medium that will allow air to get down to the roots for the plant. Okay, the fourth law. This is another one that I think people do not observe like they should, and that is water. A plant is over 80% water. Water carries the nutrients from the soil through the roots and to the plant. If you don't have water at your roots, your plant cannot take in nutrients. Water must be available to the root zone of your plants. No water, it's not going to take in nutrients. A wilting plant is a dying plant. If you walk out in your garden, it's hot, it is dry, and you see your plant has begun to wilt, that plant has begun to die. Your soil around the roots of your plant has got to remain moist. You've got to have water there for that plant. In hot weather, a plant cools through transpiration, kind of similar to the way that we sweat. When there's moisture on the leaf, it evaporates and it takes the heat with it. If it is hot outside, it is imperative that your plant has water available to cool off. If it doesn't cool off, you're baking your plant. Now, if you're still here with me and you're still watching this video, you are about to receive some information that can forever change your garden and the way it produces. If you observe the fifth law of plant growth, your plants will be bigger, they will be healthier, they will produce more food, and they're going to be very high in nutrition. They will be better for you. The fifth law of plant growth is nutrition. A plant requires 16 nutrients in order to grow strong and be healthy. We know this to be true because if you jump on Google and you Google plant nutrition deficiency, regardless of where you go, state extension offices, colleges, agronomy programs, they're going to list 13 nutritional deficiencies. They're going to lay them out for you, they're going to describe what the deficiency looks like and recommend a way to correct that nutritional deficiency. Yes, I did say the plant requires 16, but if you remember the air, we get 3 from the air. The plant is able to make carbohydrates through the oxygen, the carbon, and the hydrogen that it can get from the air. Those other 13 that the plant cannot provide for itself are generally found in the soil. The problem is those nutrients just are not there in the concentration that the plants require. Typically, the organic gardener is providing sources of nutrition in the form of compost, manure, bone meal, blood meal, and any other number of sources. The problem is that those sources do not provide all 13 nutrients, and that's where those gardens are not doing as well as they could. Although those nutrients are not commonly found in our soil in the quantities that we need, the good news is that we can provide all of those nutrients to our plant. That is how I'm able to grow in that greenhouse over there, in that sand and sawdust that contains almost no nutrients. I am putting all of those nutrients into that growing medium, into that sand and sawdust every week for the plants. It is all there. The plants are able to take it up through the water that we put in there on a daily basis and have all of the nutrients available that they need. Now the three primary ones that everybody generally tries to give their garden are NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. I contend that most gardeners are not providing enough of those three, and they're seeing what's known as hidden hunger in the garden, and it is not growing and producing to its potential. I also contend that the Mittleider system is much better at ensuring that all of your plants have all of the nutrients that they need. Our secondary nutrients are calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. The micros, also called a trace element, that the majority of people do not put in their garden, are boron, chlorine. Yes, chlorine. Your city water that is chlorinated is not harming your garden. It's actually something that the plant needs. Where was I? Chlorine. Already mentioned that one. Copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc. This little gem is going to help you too. A plant requires a balanced nutrition at all times for healthy growth. I see folks that are putting a slow release fertilizer in their garden. You're setting yourself up for failure, folks. You don't want the slow release stuff. Your plant needs that nutrient to be available at any moment. You need it available when it needs it, not 4 weeks or 6 weeks from now. If you do not provide all of the nutrients that it needs continuously, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your garden a disservice. You want that nutrient to be available at all time. Here's another big one. Plants receive all of these nutrients as a water-soluble mineral through their roots. If you are taking organic matter and putting it in your garden, like the fish head under the tomato plant when you put it in there, that fish head is in an organic state. It is organic in nature. The plant simply cannot utilize the nutrients that are in that fish head because as an organic state, it is not water soluble. It is not. For that fish head to be available, for the nutrients in that fish head to be available to the plant, it is first going to need to decompose and change from the organic state to inorganic. Taking blood from your butchered animals and putting it right in your garden is also not going to benefit your garden. Rabbit manure is organic. Yes, You can take it directly from the rabbit pen, put it directly in your garden, and it is not going to burn your plants. That rabbit manure is organic. It has to first change from an organic state to inorganic state, become water soluble so that the plant, through osmosis, can take that nutrient from the soil into its roots and distribute it to the plant. From this video, if you dial in on the fifth law, nutrition, figure out organic, inorganic, and that your plant needs 16 nutrients, you are going to see so much change in your garden. Your garden is going to do so much better. Folks, please, if you don't believe me, I understand. Test it. Test it in your own garden. Set up an area to do your traditional method and set up an area to try the nutrients that we provide with a Mittleider system. If you provide all of the nutrients that that plant needs in the correct inorganic and water-soluble state, your garden is going to explode in growth and produce. It will do so much better than any garden that you've ever had in your life. I believe that firmly, and I truly hope that you're open to the idea and to give this a try. Okay, finally, the sixth law of plant growth is competition, and more specifically, protecting against competition. In your garden, what is the competition? Well, we all know about weeds. We all hate weeds, we all fuss about it, we all try to find an easier way to remove them from your garden. That weed is competition for your food. That weed is taking up light, it is taking up water, and it is taking up nutrition that we want to go to our plants. We want to eliminate the competition. We don't want to share any of those things with our plant. If you notice in my greenhouse video, there are some weeds in there, but there are very, very few. When we grow in the soil, and unfortunately it's still raining here in Missouri, I don't have my soil bed in yet. When we grow in the soil, we eliminate the weeds in the same manner. Insects are competition. They're going to eat the food that you and I want to eat at the end of the day. You can help eliminate insects from your garden by maintaining a wide and bare aisle. In a Mittleider garden, our raised soil beds are 18 inches wide. Between each soil bed is a 3.5 foot aisle. That 3.5 foot aisle in a Mittleider garden is kept bare. If you have weeds and mulch, big rocks, whatever you use, if you have those in your garden, you're providing cover for insects. Place for them to get away from the sun, a way for them to get away from their natural predators. You're helping to make it easier for them. You're giving them an environment in which they can exist. We don't want to do that. Remove the old leaves from your plant or any leaf that is touching the ground. If it is an old leaf, that is the one that's going to draw the insects. That's where they're going to start. They're going to start in your garden on the sick and dying leaves. They typically don't attack the strong and healthy ones first. So get them old and dying leaves out of your garden entirely. Anything that is touching the ground. If it's touching the ground, it is giving insects easy access to the plant. Animals are another source of competition for your garden. You need to provide an adequate barrier to keep those problem animals out. Fence, netting, you get the point. And the last component of the sixth law of plant growth is disease. It's another form of competition. It is going to, if you have it, negatively affect your garden. Alright folks, this video is getting a little bit long. I'm going to go ahead and get it shut down for the day. If you have found any value in this content, I would appreciate you taking the time to rate it. Tell us what you think in the comment section. If there's anything that you have learned that you believe is really going to help you in your garden or that you're excited to try, we would love to hear what that is. If you have any questions or anything you'd like me to do it, clarify for you a little bit, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. I'll try my best to make sure that you get a good answer. If you're interested in the Mittleider Gardening Method, of course, we have several videos on the topic here on the channel. You're free to watch, and I'll try to remember to add a link to them in the description for you. Or you can join us on the Facebook group Mittleider Gardening Method. I'm a member there. It's not my group, but I am a member and I'm pretty active, and I would be happy to try to answer your questions there as well. There's a lot of fantastic people. There's a lot of folks that are better at this than I am. It's a great place to try to get answers, encouragement, and to see what a Mittleider garden is capable of. All right, as always, thanks for watching and have a good day.